What do you got right there?
Changing people's lives for the good.
Changing people's lives for the good. So we're going to go ahead and underline having impact. Changing lives. What do you got? Success. I want to be successful. I want to look back on my life having had success. Spelled that right? No, there's not two B's, but whatever. I haven't had a math class since high school. What do you got?
I just think of like the word equality.
Equality. Okay, so the word equality came up. Maybe you're promoting equality, helping people achieve equality, right? All right. So, we have the end in mind. So we're going to put this at the very end of what I'll call future. And then what we're going to have here is present. So we have present, we have future, we have the end game, and we have past. Okay? So we know that we want, how many of you really want to be successful? How about this? How many of you don't want to be successful in life? How many of you just want to whatever, who cares? Nobody's raising their hand. All of you want to be successful in your life. All of you want to be valuable in your life. Every single one of you. So if we start with that, are we doing everything we can right here and now to get there? And how much of my attention needs to go there? How much do I need to think about that? So we have the present, we have the past, we have the future. So let's talk about a well-balanced human being. I got this from Trevor Moab, who's worked with all sorts of executives, but he also worked with the University of Alabama, Florida State, Russell Wilson. So this comes from Trevor Moab, right? He says, well, let me ask you, our attention can go in 3 different ways, right? It can be here and now. Everybody do this. Everybody that. Right now, if you're putting your attention completely on that, you are right here and now. Now think about something that happened 2 weeks ago. Now your attention's in the past. Now think about the graduation day. Now here's the thing. Have any of you actually been to the past? Well, you've been there, but how many of you have been to the future? Have you been to the future? No. Have you been to the future? Have you? No. So the reality is that future is only an experience conceptually. It's only a conceptual experience in our minds. Okay? So if I take into consideration that future is only a conceptual experience in my mind, the past is going to be what I remember kind of weaved in with my imagination, because I'm sure you have friends that say, oh yeah, it happened like this. And you're like, what world are you living in? It didn't happen like that. So we are taking our past experience and we're weaving in our imagination, because all of us have an agenda, no matter what they say. No politicians don't have an agenda. We all have an agenda. So the past is going to be our experiences intertwined with our imagination. So a well-balanced person, what percent of their attention is on the present, on the past, and on the future? So someone guess. What do you think? What percent? A well-balanced person that typically is going to lead to a successful person, what percentage of their attention, the time and the attention that they have during that time is going to be on the present versus the past versus the future? What do you got? 33% for all of them. 33% for all of them. Anybody agree with that? Disagree? What do you think? What do you think?
I'm thinking more like 60, because like if you ever have like a random something you regretted, you automatically go back for a longer period of time.
I'm talking about a well-balanced person. Is a well-balanced person going to be in regret too often? We're going to talk about that.
So, I'm guessing it'd probably be like 20, 30, 50.
20, 30, 50. What do you got?
20, 50, 30.
20, 50, 30. What do you got? Okay. So this is according to Trevor Moab, which he is obviously way, farther along in history than I am. He says, present moment, 80%. Past, 10%. Future, 10%. So how interesting is that? That a well-balanced individual is going to have 80% of their attention right here and right now. But yet, I was just as surprised as a lot of you were when I thought, wait a second, a well-balanced person is going to have that much on their present? Well, here's the fact. This is an absolute fact. You know, there are hundreds of people in Silicon Valley right now, right? Little computer programmers trying to make the next $1 million, trying to create the next Snapchat, the next Tinder, the next whatever, right? And you know what their goal is? Their goal is to make you not present. Because if they get you addicted to one of their little apps, they make millions of dollars, and guess where you are not? You are not present. I mean, you can be present to an extent if you're present to the video game, if you're present to the app, but most of that is going to be up in your imagination, especially with social media. Social media, other than being on a screen, exists entirely in our minds. Okay? So we got it stacked up against us. You more than me, because I actually lived a whole half my life. I mean, I didn't get a cell phone until literally the day after I graduated college. So all through college without cell phones. Look at that. You actually had to like trust people were going to be where they were supposed to be and show up and be there. And then if they weren't there, you just made do with it. You couldn't get hold of them, right? So we have it stacked up against us because there's all talk about marketing. You guys want to make some money? Play around with that. Or actually, what I would love you to do is create a product that sells, that encourages people to be more present in their life. MindBody's a great app. They have a 30-day little quick meditation deal. They make money and they help people be more present in their life. So if a well-balanced, well-adjusted person is going to be present 80% of the time, in the future 10% of the time, in the past 10% of the time, let's look at that a bit further, a bit deeper. So what function is my past going to have, and what function is my future going to have? Because I don't want to be there very long. I want to go there and I want to come back to being present. Life happens now. What's the most important day of your life? Well, that wasn't a day. It's not even a day anymore. That's a memory. The only day that even exists is now. What's the most important moment of your life? Well, you can think about a moment, but in reality, those moments have come and gone. It's not a moment anymore, it's a memory. I didn't ask you what the most important memory was, or what the most important moment is. Life only happens now. So if I want to take that on, and I want to be more present in my life, what function is the past have for me? How can I use the past to help me get back to present? What are you here to do?
Learn from your mistakes.
Learn. So when I make an effort to commit to learning, then now, when I have an experience in the past, it's going to guide me to the now. Now, play on words, now not only am I in the now, I'm here, but I've just got an experience that I learned from. And I can bring that in to what's happening now. And I can have a better pickup line with a girl because, you know what, I learned from the past 3 shitty pickup lines, and maybe I do a little bit better, right? Right? So the past, when I learn from the past, it catapults me back to the present, the future. What is a good function for the future to have to help me get back to the present? I want to be 80% in the present. Planning and preparing. Planning, preparing. Boom, that's going to catapult me back to the present. So now I'm not living in my future. I'm not living and imagining and dreaming. I'm going there. Of course, there is room for imagination. 10%, cool, movies, Netflix, all that. But if I'm living in my future, right, then I'm not going to get back here because the future is going to be for entertainment and for living and for enjoyment rather than having the future be the most important thing and be planning, preparing so I can get present. So many of you might already know this. If you do know it, and when way more of my attention is on the past, when way more of my attention is on the past, what typically does that mean? Let's say 30, 40, 50% of my attention is on the past. Meaning I'm in the past a lot. Someone said it earlier.
You regret something.
I'm regretting. I'm having a hard time with what I did. I'm beating myself up. I'm dwelling. So what do we call it? What typically does that result in? If way more of my attention is on the past than 10%, I get 20, I get 30, I get 40, I get 50. What typically do I end up being diagnosed with? Louder. Depression. So depression, the big D, is what happens when I can't use experiences to learn from. I like to say, part of what we do every day is we identify with certain things. Think of this. This is my ID. I identify. Look at me. I'm 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, right? That's my identifier, right? Well, what happens when I identify with a bad experience? That's me. That's me. That's the bad experience. What do I do? What do I do? What happens when I identify with the bad experience? What do I do? That's me. I'm a bad experience. Think about that. When I look here and all I see when I look at myself is the shitty thing that I did, what do I end up doing? What do I end up doing? What's that? Well, I beat myself up about it. I'm looking at myself and all I'm seeing is a shitty experience I had. Right? What if I pull out my ID and it says learner? Oh, I identify with my learner self. What I learn from it. Now all of a sudden, instead of identifying with the experience and thinking I'm a piece of shit, right? What I do is I learn from it. And then boom, I'm back into the present. I am not my experience. I am not my experience. So what happens is, this is called with learning, making learning greater than your experience. They found time and time and time again that extremely successful people extract the learned lessons out of experiences quicker and quicker and quicker than the rest of the population. The Steve Jobses and the Bill Gateses of the world. They immediately, quickly, the Kobe Bryants of the world, even though you see him being pissed off, he's pissed off for 3 seconds, boom, what I learned from it. So time and time again, they're proving that when I identify with my learner self versus my bad experience self, right, I'm going to get present quicker and I'm going to be better prepared for the next thing. So that's what I like to think of. What are you identifying with today? Are you identifying with the experience, or are you identifying with what you're learning from the experience you're having? Now, let's go into the future. What happens when more than 10%, what happens when way more than 10% of our attention is in the future? What do we typically call that? What if, oh my God, I don't know. What? Anxiety. The big fat anxiety. So when more of my attention than this 10%, maybe 20, maybe 30, maybe 40, goes into the future, typically speaking, if that happens consistently, I am now in an anxious state. I am now in an anxious state. What is the root of anxiety? Now, this is not always the root of anxiety, but what typically is the root of anxiety? Does anybody know what that is? Some ideas. What is the root of anxiety? What if this happens? What if that happens? What's going to happen when I graduate from college? Expectation. Yes, that's a part of it. Stress. That's definitely expectation creates stress. Fear. What's the root of it? Doubt. What's the root of it? Think of a principle. Think of a psychological, almost spiritual principle. It works like gravity. When I doubt, I don't have what? When I don't have confidence, I don't have what? What is the root of confidence? Think principle. Starts with a T. Trust. Trust. To have my attention on the present, I must learn from my experience to trust myself. Because life is a lot about stud, gum, what? stuff that doesn't go my way. There's more stud gumwa in life than there is things happening. One of the things someone said in last class was a wonderful word called resilient. What does resilient mean? To withstand or to recover quickly. If you think of how human beings have evolved to this place right now, the one thing that is innate in all of us is resilience. But how can I be resilient if I don't trust myself? When I don't trust myself, I doubt myself. Then I try to control things that aren't in my control. Why do I try to control things that aren't in my control? Because I can't handle stud gumwa. I can't handle things not going my way. So one of the things that is absolutely crucial to live a present moment centered mind is to be able to trust yourself. But it doesn't mean trusting yourself to get it right. It means trusting yourself to respond to whatever happens in a way where you learn from your experience and you just evolve and you move on. Right? Very hard to do. Very hard to do when we're in anxiety. Right? When we're in anxiety and we don't trust ourselves. Okay? So anxiety is going to pull me away from being present. Depression is going to pull me away from being present. So now, feelings. How do we feel? How we feel. Am I going to feel good 80% of the time? If I'm present 80% of the time, does that mean I'm going to feel good 80% of the time? Out loud?
No.
Say it firmer.
No.
Say it firmer.
No.
No way. No way. So how can I be present 80% of the time when I'm not going to feel good 80% of the time? And I love this. A lot of this stuff I got from a guy named Dr. Ken Revisa. He's been with the Chicago Cubs the past 4 years. He was with Joe Madden with the Devil Rays. Been in Major League Baseball since the 80s. You haven't heard of him because he's so humble he won't do an interview. But his fingerprints are all over that championship. How many of you know that the Chicago Cubs won the World Series for the first time in 116 years? Right? Well, what happened when Ken gives these talks, he tells this story. And you can actually see this if you were watching the game. So Anthony Rizzo, who knows who Anthony Rizzo is? Anthony Rizzo, all right, we got some sports fans. Anthony Rizzo was the first baseman for the Chicago Cubs. Game 7 of the World Series, he had a great game. He had 2 hits, didn't make any errors. So in my mind, I think, oh, dude, that guy's got such confidence. Totally trusts himself, feeling good, rocking and rolling. They win the World Series. Woohoo! Parade down the, past Wrigley Field, and we'll go. This is awesome, right? The reality was, after the Cleveland Indians hit a home run to tie the game at 7, I believe, they zoomed in on Anthony Rizzo, and Anthony Rizzo says these words: "I'm a basket case. I'm going crazy. I'm a basket case." And David Ross, who's an elderly pitcher, says, "Breathe." He goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm going crazy. I'm a basket case." Right? And David Ross says, "Then really breathe." Right? So what is at the heart of this whole thing? Did he feel good? Was he feeling good? If he's a basket case, actually I think what the words he said, I am an emotional wreck. I got that wrong. I'm an emotional wreck. So was he feeling good? But here's one of the things that Ken preaches over and over and over again. And this is something that is so essential to living a present moment centered life, which is finding a way to be comfortable being what? Being what? Comfortable being what?
Yourself.
Uncomfortable. Anthony Rizzo was not comfortable, but because he didn't buy the bullshit that he had to be comfortable to succeed. He probably wasn't even confident, but he didn't buy the bullshit that he had to be confident to succeed. And this is what Ken says, and I love it when he says this. He says, "Are you that bad that you have to have your A game to get it done? Are you that bad that you got to feel good to get it done?" And I tell myself every day, when I wake up and I feel like crap, I go, you know what? Am I so bad that I got to feel good to get what I got to get done today? Am I so bad that I gotta feel great all the time to live my life and to get it done? This is the end goal, but really what we're talking about is, do I have to feel good to live a life based on mission versus feelings? Mission versus feelings. If I live my life based on my mission will shift and change, but it doesn't shift like a drop of a hat. I'm not going to wake up one morning and have one amazing mission, and the next morning I'm going to have the opposite mission. But what happens with our feelings? Sometimes I feel okay, a lot of times I don't. It's part of being human. We are all insecure. It's part of the human condition. Every single one of us. We all have problems with ourselves. We all have problems with our security and our confidence. Every single one of us. Every single one of us. And what happens is when our feelings align with these things, we don't feel good all the time. Actually, a lot of the time we don't feel good. We feel ashamed of ourselves. We doubt ourselves. We feel frustrated. It's part of being human. But if my feelings guide me, I'm going to go into this anxious stuff. I feel like I don't trust myself. I'm going to get anxious and I'm going to control and control and control. And then I get into relationships and I'm going to control and control and control other people because I don't trust my ability to handle dealing with you when you do that BS with me, to me. I got to control you instead of being comfortable in discomfort, not identifying with my feelings, and having my mission to be a stand-up guy, to be authentic, to be real, to be connected to what's going to lead me to the end game. So, another Trevor Moawad one. There's 3 reasons that we are motivated by 3 different things. We are motivated by 3 different things. Number 1, we're motivated by incentive. We're motivated by incentive. It feels good to win because I get trophies and accolades. Number 2, we are motivated by fear. Oh my God, I don't want to feel bad. I got to get this done because I'm scared I'm going to feel bad if I don't get it done. And the third thing we're motivated by is a desire to be great. A desire to be great. A desire to be great. And when I'm motivated by a desire to be great, and I push that desire to be great to eventually get to where I can look back on my life, and I can say that those are the things that I lived by. Those are the things that I gave out to the world and gave out to life. Well, by golly, I better live my life based on my mission today, not how I feel. Because I'm a human being, and I'm going to feel insecure, and I'm going to feel needy, and I'm going to feel miserable, and I don't want to let those feelings guide my behavior. So, these are principles. The principle is, I trust myself, I get a heck of a lot more present moment-centered life. What do we do with our past? Sometimes we don't like people. We don't like what they did to us. You know what? When I don't forgive people, I resent. You know what resent means? You know what the word resent means in Latin? Resent. Re-feel. I, me. Not the person that I'm resenting. I, me. And re-feeling over and over and over the anger I have with somebody. Principle. Forgiveness. I forgive. I can have a more present moment-centered life. I trust. I can deal with it. I got it. I'm going to graduate college, and I'm not going to know what the heck I'm going to be doing. I'm going to go on job interviews over and over and over again. I might get a job that's totally crappy, right? I might get that job, and I might not like it. That's cool. I learned from it. I got it. I got it. Everything is something to build upon, something to learn from. Something to build upon, something to learn from. And I get away from this idea that I have any right to beat myself up whatsoever. It's absolutely useless, and we need to stop doing it. Because here's the key, and Joe Madden, the Chicago Cubs coach, said this over and over and over again. We want to be present, not perfect. Present, not perfect. Now the reason why, when we're trying to be perfect, think about that. When I'm trying to be perfect, I have to perfectly control situations in the future, and I can't have done anything bad in the past. So if I'm trying to be perfect, is there any chance that I can be present? No. Not remotely. So we want to be present, not perfect. So a lot of this is tied to this thing that all of us are trying to do. It's part of being human, especially if you had a tough childhood. It's part of being human, having a tough childhood, and coming up with this idea, well, I'll just be perfect and everything will be okay. And that was me, and that almost took me to a very, very, very bad place. But now, because I don't have to be so perfect anymore, I get to be present more. And I get to trust myself because I'm not perfect, because I don't have to be perfect. I get to trust that when I screw up, which I will, or when people screw up with me, because they will, I can handle it. And there's a last myth that I want to tell everybody, is that when I have trust issues, it starts with trusting myself. Because when I say, I have trust issues, I don't trust people. Newsflash, people aren't trustworthy. They just aren't. That's life. When I have trust issues, I don't trust myself. Now, how does that relate to trusting myself? When I trust myself to deal with people that aren't trustworthy. I trust myself to remove them from my life if I need to. I trust myself to evaluate and find people that are trustworthy, and then remove them from my life when they're not trustworthy. And then over time, as I let go of this demand that people need to be trustworthy, I trust myself. Over time, I end up finding myself around pretty darn trustworthy people. And lo and behold, the trust issue was with me and my ability to judge and evaluate character, to deal with people that let me down, to deal with life. Stud, gumwa, stuff that doesn't go my way. So we're going to do a little exercise. So everybody stand up and get a partner.